Hi, my name is Lucy Rogers, and I'm adopted. It's interesting because up until about the age of 5, I thought I was white. And it wasn't until one day in kindergarten when this girl came up to me and pulled back her eyes in front of me and asked why I looked so weird that I realized that something was wrong with me, or something was at least different about me. Both my parents are white, so we grew up, with really no exposure to my Korean heritage, even though my sister was born in South Korea. In my neighborhood, there were a few other adopted families, so it made it a little bit easier. But yeah, there are times where we go out still and you don't get odd stares, but for instance, people always ask, like, oh, if I'm with my mom, like, oh, is your dad Asian? Or like, oh, are you adopted? Or what country are you from? And it's just like really weird, intrusive questions that people are asking me, and I've only just met them, and it's just like a strange thing to happen on like an everyday basis. So I usually say, like, if I don't want to get into the whole adoption thing, which most of the time I don't, I just say, oh, I'm just half Korean. That'll be like my go-to, just because it's simpler, it's easier to cut down on the bull crap. And it's something that did bother me for a really long time because people identify me immediately as being Asian, and it's hard for me to identify as that. The summer before my freshman year here at USF, I realized I just turned 18. My grandpa, like one of my best friends, just died. I'm about to go to college in San Francisco. I need to do something. So of course, 2 weeks before I leave for school, I find him on Facebook and I message him. I accidentally sent him a picture of me, which I didn't mean to do. And I said, hi, I think you're my birth father. And the weird thing is, after meeting him in person, he said, I never check my Facebook. I hadn't checked it in a year. And the only reason why I did the day that you sent me the message was because my friend told me to look up something. And if that hadn't happened, I would have never seen your message. So everything kind of just aligned. We met and had, a brief discussion. And we still keep in contact. We email, but I have not contacted my birth mother yet. So the day that I met my birth father, he told me, kind of their whole story. And he ended it with saying, the day that I was born, my parents were going to pick me up the day after. And you know how they always wheelchair a woman out of the hospital after she's given birth. So the day that my birth parents were checking out of the hospital, they couldn't find a wheelchair, so my birth father offered to go find one, and I was still in the room at this time. And he goes to find a wheelchair, he finds one, and comes back, and everyone's gone. My birth mother's gone, their families are gone, and I'm gone, and he never got to say goodbye to me. And when he told me the story, he literally started crying in front of me, and it was so, heartbreaking. I just didn't even know how to respond. I was like, he wanted a more, I don't know how to say it. He wanted more from me than I could give to him, and that makes me feel bad knowing that I'm never gonna look at him as my father, and he'll always look at me as his daughter, but I'm not gonna feel the same way. I really thought it would bring me closure, and it actually made me feel worse because when I met him, he was so incredibly emotional about the entire experience, and he was obviously, and if I put myself in his shoes, I'd probably feel the same way. Like if I had given up my child for adoption, meeting them for the first time after 18 years of not seeing them, I would be super emotional too. I think I felt guilty because I knew I wasn't really ready to meet him. I had put this date in my mind, this is the day that I'm going to meet my birth parents. And really at the time I was not emotionally stable enough to meet this man. And the fact that and looking back, I feel like I did it almost on purpose. I'm gonna meet him. If for some reason I hate him, I'm leaving for college anyway, so it doesn't matter. I'll never have to see him again. But he's a really nice guy, and, I think that's why I feel guilty, is because the father I grew up with was one that, saw me through childhood, and this man's never gonna know that because he wasn't there. And not because he didn't want to be, just because he couldn't. I feel like things do happen for a reason. I'm put in the places and on the paths that I am for a reason. So I think with time it could change. I do want to have a relationship with him. I just don't know what I want it to be yet. I don't know to what extent.